A self-driving car is moving at 50 miles an hour when its brakes fail. Ahead on the road, 5 pedestrians. The only way to miss them is to swerve into a lane with one pedestrian who will die instead. The car has a fraction of a second to decide. And somewhere, months earlier, an engineer had to decide first by writing the line of code that makes that choice for it. This exact dilemma was invented as a philosophy thought experiment in 1967. Nobody expected it to ever leave the classroom. This is the story of how it did. In 1967, a philosopher named Philippa Foot published a paper about abortion, not about trolleys at all. Foot was a British philosopher working on something called the doctrine of double effect. The idea that causing harm as a side effect of doing good can be more excusable than causing that same harm on purpose. To test that idea, she imagined a runaway trolley, a driver at the controls, and a fork in the tracks. 5 workers stand on one track. 1 worker stands on the other. The driver can do nothing, and the trolley kills 5. Or the driver can pull a lever, sending the trolley onto the other track, where it kills 1 instead. Almost everyone who hears this says the same thing: pull the lever. 1 death instead of 5. The math feels obvious. Foot wasn't trying to build a viral puzzle. The trolley was one small example, buried inside a dense academic paper about a completely different subject. For years, almost nobody outside professional philosophy ever heard about it. Then, in the mid-1970s and again in 1985, another philosopher picked it back up, Judith Jarvis Thomson. Thomson is the one who gave it its name, the trolley problem, and the one who made it famous, by adding a twist that changed everything. Picture a footbridge over the same track. 5 workers are still down there, still about to die. But this time you're not at a lever, you're on the bridge, standing next to a very large stranger. The only way to stop the trolley is to push that stranger off the bridge. His body will stop it. He'll die. The 5 will live. Mathematically, it's the exact same trade. 1 life to save 5. Identical numbers. But almost nobody says push him. Even people who happily pulled the lever recoil at the idea of pushing a person off a bridge with their own hands. Same math, opposite gut reaction. Thomson's real question was never what's the right answer. It was, why do we feel so differently about 2 choices that cost exactly the same number of lives? Part of the answer lives in a line most of us draw without noticing, a difference between doing harm and merely allowing it. Pulling the lever redirects a threat that already existed. The 1 death is a side effect of saving 5, not the means of saving them. Pushing the stranger is different. His death isn't a side effect. It's the method. You need his body to stop the trolley. You are using him as a tool. Philosophers call this the difference between foreseeing a death and intending one. It doesn't resolve the dilemma. It just explains why it feels so different, while the arithmetic stays identical. Over the next few decades, philosophers built dozens of variants to pressure test that line. Loop tracks, transplant surgeons with 5 dying patients, runaway trains with different numbers on each side. Every version asked some version of the same brutal question. When, if ever, is it acceptable to sacrifice 1 life to save several others? For decades, the trolley problem lived almost entirely inside philosophy departments, a classic first-week exercise in ethics classes around the world. It became one of the most cited thought experiments in modern philosophy, generating hundreds of academic papers arguing about lever pullers and bridge pushers. And for nearly 50 years, that's all it was. An argument confined to seminar rooms, with no machine on Earth that actually had to choose. Then engineers started building a machine that would have to choose, not hypothetically, in real traffic in real time. The self-driving car turned a thought experiment into an engineering requirement. In 2016, a Mercedes-Benz safety manager named Christoph von Hugo gave an interview about the company's self-driving cars. He told a reporter that if the car could only save one person in a crash, it would save the person inside it, the paying customer, over a pedestrian outside. The headlines wrote themselves. A car company had allegedly decided in advance whose life mattered more. Mercedes-Benz moved fast to walk it back, insisting the quote was mischaracterized and issuing a formal statement. Neither programmers nor automated systems, it said, are entitled to weigh the value of one human life against another. But the damage was done. The question was no longer academic. Somebody somewhere really was going to have to program an answer into millions of cars. The trolley problem had left the classroom and driven straight onto the highway. So a team at MIT decided to ask the whole planet what it thought. They built a website called The Moral Machine. It showed visitors scenario after scenario. A self-driving car, brakes gone, forced to choose between two groups of people. Old versus young, many versus few, pedestrians versus passengers. Anyone could play. Millions of people did. By the time the results were published in the journal Nature in 2018, the Moral Machine had logged over 40 million decisions from people in 233 countries and territories. It remains one of the largest studies of moral judgment ever conducted on any subject in human history. And the results didn't agree with each other. Preferences shifted from country to country and culture to culture. In more collectivist cultures, like Japan and China, people were noticeably less likely to say the car should spare the young over the old, a smaller gap than almost everywhere else, researchers suggested, tied to a greater cultural emphasis on respecting elders. The lead researcher, Iyad Rawan, put it simply, there are no universal rules. 50 years after Philippa Foot's paper, the trolley problem had proven at planetary scale that human beings still don't agree on the answer. And yet the cars still had to be built. Somewhere, inside real production code, engineers had to write something, even if that something was simply, minimize total harm and never choose based on who someone is. For the first time in history, a philosophy seminar argument and a line of shipped software were answering the exact same question. Not a hypothetical lever, not a hypothetical bridge. Real brakes, real pedestrians, real decisions running in silicon at highway speed. A thought experiment written to make one narrow point about abortion ethics had, 5 decades later, become a design specification for the machines now driving down your street. Philippa Foot never built a trolley. She never needed to. She just asked the right question 50 years before the world was ready to actually answer it. A runaway trolley, a footbridge, a luxury car brand, 40 million strangers voting online, all of it one single question asked over and over for 50 years. Is it ever right to choose who dies to save someone else? We still don't fully agree on the answer. The difference now is that the cars can't wait for us to. A quiet philosophy paper about abortion, written in 1967, is now quietly steering traffic in 2026. This is a turning point.